The clock on the wall ticked like a bomb about to go off. My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob. Behind this door sat the people who had laughed at me for years. The people who had stepped over me like I was nothing but a doormat. Today, all of that was going to change. Today, they would learn my name. Today, they would finally see me, and my name is Rose. I am not just a cleaning lady. I am their worst nightmare. I pushed my cleaning cart into the hallway of Wilson and Grant, the big shiny company where I've worked for almost 10 years now. The morning was busy, like always. People rushing around with their coffee cups and important papers. Their fancy shoes click-clacking on the floor. Their voices loud and full of big words that made them feel smart. Nobody looked at me. Nobody ever does, and I'm just the cleaning lady to them. The woman who picks up their trash and wipes their desks. The woman they walk past without saying hello. The woman they talk over like she's not even there, but that's okay. Being invisible has its advantages. I watched Thomas Reed, the big boss, walk by me with his nose in the air. He never once looked down to see me. His expensive suit probably cost more than I make in 3 months. His watch could pay my rent for a year, but his heart, empty as a drum. "Morning, Mr. Reed," I said softly. He didn't even nod. Just walked right by me like I was a ghost, and I felt a little pain in my chest, the kind I always feel when people look through me instead of at me. But I pushed it away. Not today. Today, I wouldn't let it hurt me. You see, they don't know my secret. They don't know that I'm not just Rose, the cleaning lady. They don't know that I hold their entire future in my hands. I wheeled my cart into the bathroom and started cleaning. The smell of bleach filled my nose as I scrubbed the sinks. My back ached a little, but I was used to it. 10 years of bending and scrubbing and lifting will do that to you. As I cleaned, I thought about my late husband, Charlie. Sweet Charlie, who had been so smart with money, who had bought lots and lots of shares in this company when it was just starting out, who had left every single one to me when he died 5 years ago. "You never know when these might come in handy, Rosie," he had told me with a wink. Oh, Charlie, if only you could see me now. I was the biggest shareholder of Wilson and Grant. I owned more of the company than anyone else. More than Thomas Reed. More than all the fancy executives with their big offices and bigger egos. I owned it all. But for years, I kept quiet. I watched. I listened. I learned. And what I learned made me sick. That I saw how they treated people. How they pushed out older workers to hire younger, prettier ones. How they cut the cleaning staff's hours, but expected the same amount of work. How they laughed about people's problems behind closed doors. Did you hear about Mark in accounting? I once heard Thomas say to his friend, his wife has cancer, and he asked for some time off. Can you believe the nerve? We have quarterly reports due. They both laughed like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. I remembered how my blood had boiled, how I had gripped my mop, so tight my knuckles turned white. But I stayed quiet. Not yet, I told myself. Not yet. I moved from the bathroom to the big meeting room, the one where they held all their important meetings. The board meeting was happening today. The one where Thomas would tell everyone how great the company was doing, how much money they were making. He wouldn't mention the people who were suffering. The ones who couldn't pay their bills because their hours got cut. The ones who got sick from working too hard. The ones who cried in the bathroom stalls because their bosses yelled at them. And oh, those people didn't matter to Thomas Reed. But they mattered to me. As I polished the big table where they would all sit, I thought about little Mia from the mailroom. Sweet young girl, maybe 22. Always had a smile for me. Always said thank you when I emptied her trash. Last week, I found her crying in the break room. What's wrong, honey? I had asked, sitting down next to her. They cut my hours again, she sniffled. I can't pay my student loans and my rent. I don't know what I'm going to do. I had patted her hand and given her a tissue. Things will get better, I promised her, and they would. I would make sure of it. I finished cleaning the meeting room just as people started to arrive for the board meeting. Men in expensive suits. Women with perfect hair and sharp eyes. They barely glanced at me as I gathered my cleaning supplies. Make sure this room is spotless. Thomas barked at me as he walked in. We have important people coming today. I nodded, keeping my eyes down. Yes, sir. He scoffed and turned away, already forgetting about me. Always forgetting about me. But today would be different. Today, they would remember that I pushed my cart out into the hallway and parked it by the wall. Then I went to the locker room, where I kept my things. My hands were shaking as I opened my locker. Inside was a simple blue dress, much nicer than my cleaning uniform. I had bought it just for today. There was also a folder, thick with papers. Papers that would change everything. I changed quickly, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I brushed my hair, put on a little lipstick. Nothing fancy, but I didn't look like the cleaning lady anymore. I took a deep breath and looked in the mirror. "You can do this, Rose," I whispered to myself. "Do it for Charlie. Do it for Mia. Do it for all of them." I picked up the folder and walked back to the meeting room. My legs felt wobbly, like they might give out at any moment. My mouth was dry. My stomach was doing flip-flops. I had never been so scared in my life. But I had also never been so sure of anything. I paused outside the door, listening to Thomas's voice booming from inside. He was talking about profits and growth and success. All the things that made him happy. All the things that came at the expense of people like me. I took one more deep breath, squared my shoulders, and opened the door. The room went quiet as I walked in. 20 pairs of eyes turned to look at me. Confused. Annoyed. Who was this woman interrupting their important meeting? "Excuse me," Thomas said, his voice cold. "This is a private meeting. You need to leave." I smiled at him. A real smile. Not the meek one I had given him for years. "Actually, Mr. Reed, I think I belong here more than anyone." His eyebrows shot up. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" I walked to the head of the table, where he stood with his fancy charts and graphs. "My name is Rose Jenkins. I clean your offices. I empty your trash. I wipe your fingerprints off the glass doors. And I own 52% of this company." The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Thomas's face turned red, then white, then red again. "That's impossible," he sputtered. That's. I opened my folder and laid out the papers. Stock certificates, legal documents, everything I needed to prove who I was. My late husband, Charlie Jenkins, was an early investor in this company. He believed in it when no one else did. When he died, he left everything to me. The board members were whispering to each other now, looking at my papers, looking at me with new eyes. "For years, I've watched how you run this company," I continued, my voice getting stronger with each word. "I've seen how you treat people, like they're nothing, like they don't matter." I turned to face all of them now, these powerful people who had never seen me before today. But they do matter. Every single person in this building matters. The ones who answer phones, the ones who deliver mail, the ones who clean your messes. Without them, you would have nothing. Thomas tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished, Mr. Reed. I have a lot to say, and you're going to listen." And for the first time ever, he did that. I told them everything I had seen. The unfair firings, the harassment, the cut corners that put people in danger. I told them about Mia and her student loans, about the security guard who worked double shifts to pay for his daughter's medicine, about the receptionist who was too afraid to report her boss for touching her inappropriately. I showed them evidence. Emails I had found left open on computers, documents left in printers, conversations I had overheard. As the majority shareholder, I have the power to make changes, I said finally. "And I'm starting with you, Mr. Reed. You're fired." His face turned purple with rage. "You can't do this. You're just a cleaning lady." I smiled at him again, feeling stronger than I ever had before. "I'm not just a cleaning lady. I'm the owner of this company, and you work for me now." The security guards came to escort him out. He yelled and threatened, but nobody listened. His power was gone. Just like that, after he left, I turned to the board members. Some looked scared. Some looked impressed. All of them looked like they were seeing me for the first time. "Things are going to change around here," I told them. "We're going to treat people with respect. We're going to be fair. We're going to make this a place where everyone is seen, where everyone matters." I spent the next few weeks making good on my promise. My business administrative crash courses and professional training certifications I had taken over the years came in handy. I gave raises to the lowest paid workers. This I was able to do conveniently because I was seeing the numbers clearly now. The company was making a lot of money, and I mean in 8 to 9 figures monthly on revenue. I made sure everyone had good health insurance. I created a system where people could report bad behavior without fear of losing their jobs. That I moved into a small office on the first floor. Nothing fancy. I didn't need a big corner office like Thomas had. I just needed a place where people could find me, where they could talk to me. Mia was one of the first to come see me. "I can't believe it was you all along," she said, sitting across from me with wide eyes. "You were always so kind to me. I never thought that a cleaning lady could own a company." I finished for her. She blushed. "I'm sorry. That sounds awful when you say it out loud." I laughed. "It's okay. Nobody saw me. That was the point. I needed to see what was really happening here, not what people would show to the boss." "Well, I think you're amazing," she said. "You've changed everything." And it was true. The company felt different now. People smiled more. They worked hard not because they were afraid, but because they felt valued, respected. Some days I still put on my cleaning uniform and push my cart around. Not because I have to, but because I want to. It reminds me of where I came from. It helps me stay connected to every part of the company, and when new employees stare at me in confusion, wondering why the owner of the company is emptying trash cans, I just smile. Everyone's job matters, I tell them. Everyone deserves respect. That's the lesson I want them to learn. That's the company I want to build. A place where nobody feels invisible, where everybody knows they matter. Charlie would be proud, I think. Not just because I used his shares to become rich and powerful, but because I used them to make a difference. And every night, when I go home to my little house that I still haven't moved out of, I look up at the stars and whisper, "We did it, Charlie. We really did it." And somewhere, I think he's smiling back at me. 6 months passed since I took over Wilson and Grant. The changes were working better than I could have ever imagined. People smiled in the hallways now. They said hello to each other. They worked together instead of trying to step on each other to get ahead. But not everyone was happy with the new way of doing things. One morning, I came into my office to find a note on my desk. No envelope, just a piece of paper folded in half. I opened it with curious fingers. "You don't belong here. Go back to cleaning or else." My hands trembled as I read it. The words were cut out from magazines and pasted onto the paper, like in those old crime movies. I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew there would be people who didn't like me taking over. Thomas Reed had friends in the company. People who got special treatment when he was in charge. People who lost their privileges when I took over, but I never thought they would threaten me. I folded the note and put it in my desk drawer. I wouldn't let it scare me. I had faced worse things in my life than a nasty note. Still, I couldn't help looking over my shoulder as I walked through the building that day. I watched people's faces, wondering who might have left it, who still saw me as just the cleaning lady who didn't belong. That afternoon, I had a meeting with Sam, the new head of human resources. I had hired him to replace Thomas's friend who had ignored all the complaints about bad behavior. "Rose, these changes you're making are amazing," Sam said, his eyes bright with excitement. "Employee satisfaction is up 70%. People are actually happy to come to work now." I smiled, trying to push the threatening note out of my mind. "That's great to hear, Sam. What about the new childcare center? How's that coming along?" "We're almost ready to open," he said. 20 spots for employees' children with trained teachers and everything. It's going to make such a difference for our working parents." I nodded, feeling proud. The child care center had been my idea. I remembered how hard it had been for me when my kids were little, trying to find someone to watch them while I worked. "And what about the scholarship program for employees who want to go back to school?" I asked. Sam grinned. 10 people have already applied. It's going to change their lives, Rose." As we talked, I felt my worry about the note fading. This was why I had taken over. Not for power or money, but to make things better for everyone. After the meeting, I decided to take a walk around the building. I still did this often, talking to people, hearing their ideas and concerns. It was the best way to know what was really happening. As I passed the break room, I heard loud voices. I paused, listening. "She doesn't know what she's doing," a man's voice said. "Stock prices are down 5% since she took over. But morale is up," a woman argued. "People actually want to work here now." "Who cares about morale?" the man scoffed. "This is business, not a charity." I recognized the man's voice. It was Victor, one of Thomas's old friends. He had been angry ever since I took away his extra-large bonus and used the money to give raises to the lowest-paid workers. I hesitated outside the door. Should I go in? Confront him? No, I decided. Everyone was allowed to have their opinion. As long as Victor did his job and treated people with respect, he could think whatever he wanted about me. I started to walk away when I heard him say something that made me freeze. "We need to get rid of her," Victor said, his voice low and dangerous. "Before she ruins everything." My heart pounded in my chest. Was Victor the one who left the note? Was he planning something worse? I hurried back to my office, feeling sick to my stomach. I had been naive to think that everyone would accept the changes I was making. Some people didn't want things to be fair. They wanted the old way, where they got special treatment, and everyone else suffered. For the first time since taking over, I felt afraid. Not just for myself, but for everything I was trying to build. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, thinking about Victor's words. "We need to get rid of her." What did that mean? How far would he go? The next morning, I came to work early. The building was quiet, only a few early birds at their desks. I went straight to my office and closed the door. I needed to think. I couldn't let fear stop me. I had come too far, done too much. The people who worked here deserved better than to go back to the old ways. That I picked up the phone and called Sam from Human Resources. "Sam, I need you to look into something for me," I said when he answered. "There might be some people who are unhappy with the changes we're making." "Like who?" he asked. "Victor Thompson, for one," I said. "I want to know if he's planning anything that could hurt the company." Sam was quiet for a moment. "I'll see what I can find out," he said finally. "But Rose, be careful. Victor has friends in high places." After I hung up, I sat back in my chair, trying to calm my racing heart. I had faced bullies before. I wouldn't let Victor scare me away. A knock on my door made me jump. Mia poked her head in, smiling. "Morning, Rose. I brought you some coffee," she said, setting a mug on my desk. "2 sugars, just how you like it." I smiled back, grateful for her kindness. "Thanks, Mia. How are you doing?" "I'm great," she said, sitting down across from me. "I actually wanted to talk to you about something. I have an idea for the company." I leaned forward, interested. "Tell me about it." Mia's eyes lit up. "I think we should start a mentorship program. Pair up newer employees with experienced ones. Help people learn and grow." I nodded slowly, liking the idea. That could work. "Would you want to be in charge of it?" Her mouth fell open. "Me? But I'm just a male clerk." I smiled at her. "You're not just anything, Mia. You're smart and kind, and people like you. Those are important qualities for a leader." She blushed, looking down at her hands. "I've never been in charge of anything before." "There's a first time for everything," I said. "I believe in you." After Mia left, I felt better. This was why I couldn't give up. People like Mia deserved a chance to shine. They deserved to be seen for who they really were, not just their job title. That I spent the rest of the day in meetings trying to push Victor and his threats out of my mind. But as I was leaving for the day, Sam called me. "Rose, I found something," he said, his voice urgent. "Can you come to my office?" I hurried down to the HR department, a knot of worry in my stomach. Sam was waiting for me, his face serious. I checked Victor's company emails, he said when I closed the door. He's been talking to Thomas Reed. They're planning something big. My blood ran cold. What kind of something? Sam handed me a printout of an email. They're trying to get other shareholders to join them. They want to vote you out at the next board meeting. I read the email, my hands shaking. Victor and Thomas were claiming that I was ruining the company, that the changes I was making were costing too much money, that I was bad for business. They need 75% of the votes to remove you, Sam explained. You have 52%, so they need to convince a lot of people to join them. I sat down heavily, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Do you think they can do it?
Sam shrugged.
I don't know. Some of the older board members might agree with them. They're not used to putting people before profits. I closed my eyes, thinking hard. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't let Thomas and Victor undo all the good we had done. When is the board meeting? I asked.
Next week, Sam said.
Thursday. I nodded, a plan starting to form in my mind. Then we have work to do. The next day, I called an emergency meeting with all the department heads. These were the people who had seen the changes up close, who knew what a difference they were making. I need your help, I told them, explaining about Thomas and Victor's plan. They're trying to convince people that caring about employees is bad for business. We need to prove them wrong. How? Asked Linda from marketing, I smiled. We're going to show them the numbers. The real numbers. For the next week, we worked nonstop. We gathered data on everything: employee turnover, productivity, customer satisfaction. We compared the numbers from before I took over to now. The results were clear. Yes, we were spending more money on employee benefits. Yes, profits were slightly lower. But turnover had decreased by 60%. Productivity was up. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high. In the long run, these changes will make us more money, not less. I explained to the board members I met with one by one. Happy employees work harder. They stay longer. They care more about the company. Some board members nodded, convinced. Others were harder to convince. But I kept trying, using both numbers and stories to make my case. The day of the board meeting arrived. I dressed carefully in my blue dress, the same one I had worn the day I fired Thomas. My lucky dress. I thought of it now. As I walked into the boardroom, I saw Victor and Thomas sitting together, smirking. They thought they had won already. I took my seat at the head of the table, trying to look confident even though my heart was racing. Thank you all for coming, I began. I understand there are concerns about the direction of the company under my leadership. Thomas stood up. That's putting it mildly, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. You're running this company into the ground with your feel-good policies.
I didn't let his words rattle me.
I'd like to present some data that suggests otherwise, I said calmly. For the next hour, I showed them everything we had found. The numbers, the trends, the improvements. Yes, our profit margin is slightly lower, I admitted. But our customer base is growing. Our employees are more productive. We're building a sustainable company that will last for years, not just make money now. I looked around the room, meeting each board member's eyes. I'm not asking you to choose between making money and treating people well. I'm showing you that we can do both. When I finished, there was silence. Then one of the older board members, Mr. Jenkins, spoke up. I've been in business for 40 years, he said slowly, and I've never seen data like this. It's impressive. Victor jumped in. This is all just numbers on a page, he sneered. It doesn't prove anything. Actually, said another board member, it proves that Rose knows what she's doing, that she understands business in a way that you never did, Thomas. Thomas's face turned red with anger. This is ridiculous. We're not running a charity here. No, I agreed. We're running a company made up of people. And when you take care of your people, they take care of your business. The vote was called. I held my breath as each board member cast their vote. When the final tally was announced, I felt tears of relief spring to my eyes. Thomas and Victor had lost, by a wide margin. This is not over, Thomas hissed as he stormed out of the room, Victor right behind him, but it was over. The board had spoken. My vision for the company would continue. After the meeting, many board members came to shake my hand, to congratulate me, to tell me they were impressed. You've opened my eyes, Mr. Jenkins said. I never thought about business this way before. I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Sometimes it takes a different perspective to see things clearly. As I walked back to my office, I saw Mia in the hallway. She was putting up posters for the new mentorship program. How did it go? She asked anxiously. We won, I told her. The company is safe. She hugged me tight. I knew you could do it. You're the best thing that ever happened to this place." I laughed, hugging her back.
No, Mia.
People like you are the best thing that ever happened to this place. People who care, who want to make things better. That night, as I drove home, I thought about how far we had come. From the day I had walked into that boardroom as the cleaning lady to now. It had been a hard journey, a scary one at times, but it had been worth it. Every step. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw a figure sitting on my porch. For a moment, fear gripped me. Was it Thomas or Victor? Had they come to threaten me at my home? But as I got closer, I saw it was Lily, my neighbor. A single mom who worked 2 jobs to support her kids. "Rose," she said, standing up as I approached. "I heard what happened at your company. The whole neighborhood is talking about it." I smiled, a little embarrassed. "Word travels fast." She nodded. "I was wondering, are you hiring? I've been looking for a better job. Something stable, with good benefits." I thought about the childcare center we had just opened, about how perfect Lily would be there with her experience raising 3 kids of her own. "Actually," I said, "I think I might have the perfect position for you." The look of hope on her face made everything worth it. All the fear, all the hard work, all the fights. This was why I had taken over Wilson and Grant, not for power or revenge, but to create a place where people like Lily could have a chance, where they could be seen, where they could matter. As we walked into my house together, talking about the job, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was just the beginning. There was still so much good we could do, and I knew, deep in my heart, that Charlie was watching, that he was proud of what I had become. Not just Rose the cleaning lady, not just Rose the company owner, but Rose the person who made a difference.